Welcome to the Rodelcast, where we discuss issues related to public education and the workforce with guests from around the state and around the world. My name is Paul Herdman, and this podcast is part of a series in an OECD project called Career Pathways in a Rapidly Changing World. We are looking at the transition from senior secondary school or high school to whatever young people decide to do next. We're looking specifically at high school programs that build meaningful work-based learning experiences into their general education courses to better prepare those students to make more informed choices. Today's story is about New Zealand. Over 5 days, I spoke to about 40 students and 40 adults in Auckland and Wellington. But in a country of about 5 million people spread across 2 islands covering the landmass of Colorado, what follows is just a snapshot in time, a slice of their story. The through line of my visit here was an appreciation of the country's indigenous cultures and an overriding commitment to equity. We're going to hear from Rota Carrington, a leader in the Department of Education, who's helping build connections between schools and employers. And he's also a leader in a tribe, or a iwi. Rota took me to several schools, and we'll hear from a group of young women at one of them, the Westlake Girls High School, a school that is infusing STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math into their educational experiences. Finally, we'll hear from Glen Denham, a former professional basketball player and longtime school leader in the UK and New Zealand. He was the principal of a diverse school serving low-income students called Massey High School in Auckland for 8 years. And in the last year, he was selected as principal of Wellington High School, a prestigious all-boys school, which is where I met him and we spoke. Relationships and understanding who you are as a person are foundational here. Every meeting I went to with Rota, he and the other leaders around the table shared a bit about their family and origins to establish who we were before getting into the deeper discussion. Here's Rota.
Kia ora, Paul. Ko maunga arangi toku maunga, ko otara toku awa, ko Ngāti Ngahere toku hapu, ko whakatohea toku iwi, ko mātātua toku waka, ko Rota Carrington ahau. That introduction, that's my introduction, and it goes, maunga arangi is my mountain, otara is my awa, my river. Those are two, we're connected to the land. And when I say that, people who are listening to me who have some knowledge will already know where I am, where I'm from, where I was, my history goes back to. And then I go, Ngāti Ngahere is my hapu, that's my sub-tribe, and Whakatohea is my iwi, my wider tribe. Mātātua toku waka, that's the canoe that came from Rarotonga, Hawaii, that brought our people, and they landed not far from where I just described. So that's a traditional Māori, and those, depending on the depth of knowledge or who's present, those can be very long and go back a long way. And people with knowledge will understand that. And the very best thing about that is that when Māori people meet each other, it's always, where are you from first? And that gives you a connection, a relationship. And you may be related, or you may have an association, not personally, but from tribe to tribe. And New Zealand is adopting this as a way of doing things.
Rota was an educator, a school leader, and a tribal or iwi leader, and then brought all those experiences to his role at the Ministry of Education to connect young people to career opportunities. He shared the following.
I worked with the schools, I worked with the ministry, and some funding agencies in different ministries. And through that, my role there, I became involved in partnership with some of the programs that I'm currently managing now in the ministry. So I applied for the job. It was a new role, and it's called Employment, Business and Industry. So it's working with employers, businesses, industry, and looking at what they need coming out of schools, and then trying to get schools to make a shift to what they're delivering so that the students are ready for employment. Our schools have been focused on an academic achievement approach where 30% go to tertiary, and so the other 70% aren't actually prepared for work. And so the team that I'm in, we're filling that void of learning, vocational learning, and it's not just vocational.
This connection to the indigenous culture was powerful here and critical to re-engaging students. The country has the scars of colonization, but the language and culture were present in the design of the schools and the symbolism within them. The language among Maori, Pacific Islanders, and white or Pakeha educators was ever present. This had practical implications, particularly in the wake of COVID, because a lot of the students of color became disconnected from school during the pandemic.
COVID, there were a lot of, let's say, families where the parents may have lost their jobs. However, there were a lot of jobs that came up that were part-time that suited youngsters. And it was working in the supermarket, it was stocking shelves, it was maybe in the logistics parts of companies where the students were able to take on part-time roles to keep their family finances going. And that was the priority. The families managed to survive. And so this wasn't, it was probably we're talking about a less financially able cohort rather than Māori or Pacifica. But because we sit into that demograph, it was a majority of Māori Pacifica. Yeah. And so I think patterns of behaviour were established, and it was hard to break. Once COVID was over and we went back to work, not everyone went back to work or to school. It was shut off again, so there was this disrupt that we've found it hard to get back into the groove, particularly with schools.
This connection to the culture translates into concrete changes in what is being taught.
Over the last few years, New Zealand have decided to go into what we are calling the New Zealand curriculum in history. And They are putting aside the colonial history that was written by the British and recognising and coming together. And not all of that was not true, but they're finding out what was buried underneath the narratives that were told by the colonisers. So they're lifting up the knowledge and acknowledging the old knowledge of the indigenous people of New Zealand. And so our youngsters are growing up in schools. They will be aware of Māori weren't blown here by accident on a fishing trip. They actually navigated here.
As an educator, Rota works with other educators about how to make this connection. He used the story of the mythical Maui, the demigod of Maori and Polynesian lore, who created the islands and could even control the sun. He helped educators see the inherent gifts in their students.
I was asked to take a workshop on teaching science in the primary school. And this was 2 years ago. And I'd prepared a day of activities, science activities. And these teachers didn't teach science, not well, but not at all in some cases. And a part of it to blame is our teacher training. None of them were science majors. Prepared all the science stuff, and I thought they still won't think they're science teachers. So I flipped it around and said, we're just going to create more Mauis in your class. And we all know Maui, Māori or Pakeha. That's Māori or white or brown, whatever we are. We all know Maui. Those are the storybooks. Those are our fairy tales. So every classroom would have a book about a legend of Maui and what he did. There are many legends. And so I said, okay, the first thing we did was we wrote on the board, what are the characteristics of this person? And he was cheeky. He was a problem solver. He never took no for an answer. He was an explorer. He was a navigator, all of these things. And I said, has any of you got someone in your class that's like that? And you could instantly see a recognition of that kid that was always wanted to know something else, or bought what looked like a piece of rubbish to school, but it was something he found in the weekend in the tree and wanted to know more about it. And I said, so this is what this program's about. And they all understood. We're going to grow you as a Maui, and we want you to grow other Mauis in your class. And I said, one great way of doing it very easily is if you have what we'll call a Maui table. So everything of interest that these kids find or want to talk about, they put on this table. And here are all the magnifying glasses that are in your resource room that are still in the packets. Those should be on every classroom. Kids should take them out, have a look for cicadas and locusts and all that sort of stuff in the playground that are there all the time. And I'm not asking you to be a science teacher. I'm asking you to be a developer of more Maui. And they took that. So they weren't expected to be a science teacher. But the thing was, they didn't need to know. They could find out with the kids.
Yeah, I love that story. And this may be obvious based on everything we've just talked about, but why is that connection so important?
This is who I am. I'm listening to who you are. Oh, we have a connection. All of those things bring us together, closer together. And it's really important for those kids because they've been undervalued and have been invisible often in the classrooms. And some of them have a cultural competency that is far greater than anything they can learn in a classroom.
The story of Maui, the power of creativity, innovation, and problem solving, was evident in our visit to the Westlake Girls High School in Auckland. This school has a program led by Susana Tomaz focused on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. For junior high students, this involves linking science and math with global appreciation and critical thinking in English and social studies. These in-class courses are also connected to the girls working collaboratively in a community project and developing an innovative technological solution to a real-world issue they identify in their community. For the older senior high students, there's an added E in the coursework for entrepreneurship. The line of study is called eSTEAM. This involves added components including learning about finance and business skills needed to start their own business and opportunities to work directly with leaders in business and industry through their internships. What follows is a conversation with 7 of those students and their teacher, Susana. The students that are in this group are a mix of students from about 15 to 18.
This could be whoever's interested in sharing it, but just maybe talk a little bit about what has been most interesting about your educational experience so far, maybe as it relates to STEAM or just something that was really powerful in terms of your learning.
I think it definitely is learning outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
Thinking about, for example, the internships with the STEAM program, as well as even art trips, just anything out of school, getting out in the real world and just having that experience. I think that's really great.
Yeah, and Westlake just in general offers a lot of different opportunities, and whether it be like in the different courses that we take, for example, eSTEAM and just STEAM in general, year 9, 10, 11, jam-packed, so fun. So there was this massive thing in year 10 called community project, and that was a lot of getting out there, getting to know your community, getting to know the issues in the community, and really targeting those issues in your little groups. And we did an innovation expo at the end, so that was more just selling your idea, which was really good. It was a really good learning experience for me and my group.
In asking about what the students found to be a powerful learning, they talked about what they were doing outside of school connected to what they were learning in class. You'll hear them mention internals. This is in reference to internal assessments developed by the school to capture how well students master a given subject area. I appreciated how the work in the classroom connected to their work in the field and by some of the simple but important skills they learned in communicating with adults.
What we're doing this year in eSTEAM is similar to community projects in a way that we're looking at another kind of issue, probably a bit bigger, and looking at how to use innovation incorporating into our ideas and solutions. So we're organising an event which will help your issue in some way, in some part of the community. Annika and I are working together and we're targeting more towards helping out people in poverty with healthcare and getting access to healthcare, which we've only just started this term, so we haven't gotten into it yet, but just opportunities like that to explore solutions that maybe haven't been around yet. And it all feeds back into the internals that we do, so it's not just something that you're doing outside of your assessments, it will all be like part of your assessments, which is really good.
I think the fact that we have these opportunities to like apply it to real life situations and current world events and problems, it's really benefits us as well as helps build our like thinking to be more like critical thinkers and more innovative and passionate in helping the community and world in general.
Yeah, thank you.
I really enjoyed it just because it was something that kind of took you out of the classroom and got you more involved. And everything that we did was so much fun. And it really gave us the opportunity to build relationships with all our different friends and people in the community and help teach us different life skills that maybe necessarily we wouldn't have developed without it.
I think like people skills and professionalism, especially when you're communicating with like bigger organizations, it's something you don't really do in class, but when you are making something for the community, the feedback of your end users and everything is really important. So I think we like learn how to communicate with them on a bigger scale.
That's helped me a lot with going outside of class, going to like expos and things like that, talking to people, adults who are in businesses and things. It made me more comfortable and realize that they're also just people. It's a friendly thing. Because like sometimes like when we went to that Microsoft one, I forgot that the people that worked there were like people with actual advice to give us. I thought it was like, wow, they're doing such big things, but they're like actual people who've had a journey. And I really liked that because we got to engage with the business. And we did that in community projects as well. So going to a day specialised for that was like also just writing emails. I feel like we write emails to teachers a lot, but this is writing emails to someone outside of our Westlake organisation, which was like really, it was just a new sort of skill that we had to learn and pick up. And I feel like it will be really helpful for outside of school when we go outside of school.
They were expanding their people skills, what some might frame as social capital, and they were learning and applying new technical skills. That is, they were also building their human capital by designing a community project using innovative new technologies. Here's an example.
For our community project, we looked at the problem of invisible disabilities and how so many people in our community are just not aware about invisible disabilities, largely because they are invisible, and just people just in a way ignore the outcomes of it. In a sense, people, for example, I would say neurodisability. You don't exactly see it in people, but they have so many ongoing processes that they have to do and just so many problems they have to deal with. So I guess people just are neglecting towards those types of people. And so our project, we basically created a book, a graphic novel, with a QR code at the back that would take you to an AR software. And so basically you would scan the book with your AR and it would come up with the opposing idea of what would happen when people are aware of invisible disabilities. And so that sort of just showed what we can do as a community to see when people are aware of invisible disabilities and see the opposing and see when people are not aware of disabilities. So just the difference we can make as a community.
By engaging with professionals, particularly women in the STEAM fields, it seemed to expand their career options for these young women. And as the OECD Career Readiness Research suggests, just having a chance to experience, explore, and think about these career opportunities will help them later in life.
What are you thinking about immediately following year 13?
There is something in the medical field, and like what me and Anita was saying during the tour was we did have the opportunity through LinkedIn to find about the Girl Boss program, the healthcare one, which was such an eye-opener to see what an actual person's standard life is and see if that's actually what I wanted to do.
But a couple of the things that I didn't realise was that business and marketing came into so many different things.
Yeah.
When I went to the Sisters in Tech program and we talked to people that were in technology careers, I dismissed that from what I wanted to do because in my head I was like, I don't want to stay like in a computer all day, not doing anything creative. But like going to talk to those people, I realised that marketing also came into that, and so did business, and so did so many other things. So now it's getting broader for me in terms of what I want to do, but I'm realising that if I pick something I like marketing or something, then I can look to do that if that's a job that allows me to travel, or if that's a job that allows me to be in an environment that I like, I can choose that in what I want to do.
In asking what they wanted to improve, the through line was clear. They wanted to have more experiences that connected their classwork to the real world.
I wanted to do more trips. We've only gone on one trip so far this year, which was the Sisters in Tech one. But involving yourself with like people who like work in different industries and seeing what they're like day to day and like their journey, because I think one thing from the Sisters in Tech was that not necessarily you have to know what you want to do. Like they did so many different like studies, and then like they got to like technology. It was like their last kind of like thought process. They're like, oh, this is maybe what I really want to do. It's like maybe more trips to see like people's journey. Like I really enjoyed that.
You could jump either to things you can see lots of or more of, or
Just more hands-on activities, honestly, compared to theory and just paperwork or typing. Being able to get your hands up, the 3D printing, laser cutting, making the trophies for community projects, that was super fun. I think. And it's also immersing yourself in more technology. For STEAM, I would never have touched a 3D printer or worked with that kind of software, so that was really insightful as well. Yeah.
And that's what makes STEAM different from all your other subjects where you're mainly just theory, is just bookwork. And the internals, and I did see that when the internals came in, so that was year 11, a lot of the hands-on experience just faded away because we were more focused on our internals, which in a way is necessary to get our credit. But I'd say just in year 11, having more of that hands-on continuing from year 10 would also be really good. Yeah.
I think for me, when I was in STEAM, quite a few years ago, when I was a bit younger, I would have wanted a lot more long-term projects, which I understand is quite hard, but I think for me personally, I quite liked working on a project for a long time and getting a really polished and refined result.
So with the hands-on thing, the way that we learn how to use the technology or whatever we need, at the moment it's about 50-50, which is like half of it you learn by someone tells you and you get told and search up and use Google and all that. But I remember in year 10, at the start of year 10, we were introduced to the laser cutter and the 3D printer. And a way for us to be introduced to that was we had to make an arcade game. And so we had learnt like very little about how to use them. It was just a straight in, this is like the equipment, just play around with it and get used to it. And after making the arcade game, everyone knew how to use it because they just picked it up as they went.
Right.
That was so much fun, and that was such a good example of like how we learnt the technologies by doing things that were hands-on, rather than just Googling it or having long like lectures about how to use things. That was one of my favourite learning bits.
After visiting several schools in Auckland, from Westlake to schools like Massey and Manarua, schools that were serving very diverse populations with more than 50 languages spoken, I got a chance to visit the capital, Wellington, and to meet with ministry officials as well as visit Wellington College, a prestigious all-boys high school that is state-funded but serves students from higher-income families. It was a beautiful campus with some historic buildings from its founding in 1778, as well as some newer facilities. With an average university pass rate of 97% for most of these young men, the expectation was to go on to university. One student I met seemed to reflect how I think many of his peers felt. Their job was to do well through secondary school, focus on getting good grades, and then figure it out at university.
Any final thoughts from you about like how you're going to think about making a good choice in the next couple of years?
Obviously, like most people, I reckon that's a big key part in like futures.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I'll just try and get best grades possible and then go from there.
The headmaster or principal of Wellington College, Glen Denham, came to the school with an impressive background as a former professional basketball player and long history as a strong educator and school leader in the UK and New Zealand. Most recently, he spent the last 8 years at Massey High School as principal, a school that serves a much more diverse student population than Wellington. You'll hear him reference the students at Massey throughout his comments. Glen echoed some of the themes about the importance of relationships and connection that Rota shared.
In New Zealand, it's Aotearoa, which is the Māori name, which means land of the long white cloud.
Yeah.
But there is a thing that New Zealand schools have, and it's called a kahui ako. And kahui ako means it's a community coming together. It's a community of schools, really. And what a kahui ako looks like is local feeder primary schools into a secondary school all get together to talk about a pathway for learning.
Right.
And so it's usually from year 1 to year 13, and they talk about transition into secondary school and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So that pathway, I guess, in Māori kaupapa, it means the way of knowledge. And it's each school will have so schools will have a different kaupapa, the way we are governed, the way we are guided, and those kinds of things. Yeah. The thing that our people are very good at is Māori people is relational. We are all about relationships. If you came in here, probably you would say to me as another Māori man, you might do I think of your mihi, which is who you are. So you would tell me in Delaware, this is my mountain, this is my river, this is where I'm from. Geographically, I know, and what I'm trying to do is I'm listening to you. I'm trying to find my link to you. My connection to you. And I can go, man, okay, my uncle worked in Delaware. Oh, I know where. And we are trying to build family, whānau, that connection, very important. And so those things are very important, the connection, and we're lucky to be in a country that propagates that.
A big part of reconnecting the indigenous culture to the communities served by the public schools has been a resurgence in the Maori language. Glen shared the following.
As we were colonised, and the way to de-skill a people is to take their language. Right. So then Māori our language was taken from us, and there's a massive, there's a massive drive to get Te Reo Māori back, and people talking about it. And people say, oh, why do we learn it? Because we don't use it anywhere else, because this is this word is called Tūranga Waiwai, and Waiwai is your, how do I put it? It's your, Tūranga Waiwai is your place to stand. Yeah. So everybody has a place to stand. So my Tūranga Waiwai is in a place called Rotorua. That's where my ancestors are from. So that is my place. That's where I'm from. It's a beautiful thing.
Glen, being the first Maori headmaster of this well-respected school established more than 150 years ago, sends a powerful signal about race and achievement.
So as an indigenous people, Māori, we tend to look, and it is around poverty, but statistics say that Māori Pacifica don't achieve as well as other, and trying to remedy that. And what is predominantly, we're in a Pākehā, which is in English, but it's about ourselves and indigenous people. We get pigeonholed, and you can only be a builder, and you should do the manual labour. You'll have come across that before. And I'm the first, we're 157 years old, this school, I'm the first Māori headmaster here. And so it's a big deal for my whānau in my tribe and where I'm from. And for me, about that. And I couldn't have been more welcome to Wellington College. They've been amazing. But it's about having a seat at the table. And so the thing is too is that it's the how do I put this? It's the bespoke, siloed education system that just cannot work.
His vision is that all students, those going straight into work or those pursuing university, would have some sort of work-based learning experience while in high school.
So when they get there, getting relationships. And it's building those relationships. And the other thing too is that our kids are ready for that on-site experience. So I think school for kids should look like for all kids. Whether you're going to become an engineer and or an accountant at Deloitte's, you do 3 days here, then a day at Deloitte's, and you're going to do a day at another accounting firm. And then you'll come back and packing your whatever you need to do at school, but it gets them ready for the world of work. You've got to wear a suit. That's what it is.
Glenn points to the need to build soft skills, or the 21st century skills one might need to succeed in a workplace. Americans might call them durable skills, the Scots might call them meta skills, and he puts their importance in the context of race and class.
And what we want to do as careers advisors is expose kids, because there is no way a boy here from Wellington College is going to leave and do the same job for 40 years like I did when I grew up.
Right.
So we just want to get a set of multi skills. At the top of those multi skills is how they interact with people.
Right.
Those skills about how to listen, I do not know anyone here. How do I enter a conversation? How do I exit? For our kids at Massey, how do I sit when there's finger food and how much do I take and what do I do? What we do is we teach kids to swim, to be like fish. So you can enter any water and be at home.
Right.
And that's because what happens is that you don't worry about having imposter syndrome, that you shouldn't be here because of the colour of your skin. Right. And part of this connection at the world of work is it's got to start when the kids they leave school here at 18, but it's got to start sort of 15, 16, and building up those relationships and building up those, and it's that connection. And it takes more than one visit. But so we are dealing with a very Pākehā world, and how does our culture fit into that world, and how can we be recognised that it's okay to be us?
Near the end of my conversation with Glenn, I asked him what he was excited about and what kept him up at night. He underscored his excitement about the deeper school-to-work connections, but not surprisingly, what kept him up at night was equity.
I think we're in a very exciting stage where this overlap of workplace and school is starting to get closer. At Massey, it's tangible. Some bloke is in a ute and walking down to the thing. He's an electrician, but he's come to work with our kids. That's very exciting. Here, we're very excited. We've just built a brilliant relationship with Victoria University. And so there, we're sending our kids, and well, not only our kids, but kids from all schools, they meet 4 to 6 on a Saturday, and those are the kids that want to do scholarship in UE and that kind of thing. The university are very heavily involved in that. And because again, if they can see the lecturers from the university there, so I'm really, this link with tertiary education. One of the things we say, there's a terrible qualification here called university entrance. It's a rubbish. We need it. But people think that it means that they've got to go to university, or they don't. It's just about a course of study. So I think that's probably it. In New Zealand, we are actively trying to get businesses and workplaces into schools. I'm really proud of that. Right. I can see it, I can feel it, and it's a tangible thing that the ministry are really working on, I think. The thing that keeps me up at night is equity. And that's the thing that I worry about, is that I look at my boys here, and I'm honoured to serve them, but their life chances and opportunities, at Massey we used to say every chance, every child, every day. And it's not. I look at these kids and out here at these boys, and their lives are they're assured, really. The kids at Massey, it's not. It's about that. It's about that. That keeps me up. Is that the kids at Porirua College? They're so wonderful, led by a brilliant lady. How can we help them and support them have the same chances as our kids? Because when we talk about equity, you've heard this before, and I tell you this as a person that came from poverty. We're not after equity of outcome. We just want opportunity. I want the same shoes as Usain Bolt. I want the same training. I want the same coaches. And then let's line us up. And then let's run. It beats me, but at least we've got the same stuff. Currently, right now, we start 200 yards behind it.
As we closed out our discussion, Glenn went over to his wall and took down a multicolored stretch of rope that I was curious about. It was about 2 meters long. His explanation gave me some insights into his sense of urgency.
I made this up, and I put it up here, and this is my life. And what it is it's why I put it up was, it just reminds me of stuff. So this is when I was born. This is when I went to kindergarten. This is my primary school, Castorpham Primary School, McAndrew Intermediate. I went to King's High School. Then I went to Stanford, and I missed my mum so much, and I was the only Māori boy at Palo Alto. It was a great school and that kind of thing. University, Otago University, and this is my basketball career, teaching, all of that kind of thing. I became assistant principal, I became an associate principal, and inside there I had cancer 3 times, I had lots of ups and downs and that kind of thing, and then I became a principal. Do you know what these are? Okay. That is the life expectancy of a Pākehā man, an Englishman. So that's about, in New Zealand, it's about 79 years, 7 months. This is the life expectancy of a Māori man. And we're at 71, so I'm almost 60. It's, what am I going to do? And this is me now. What am I going to do with that?
Thank you for listening to this podcast on New Zealand's work to reimagine its college and career preparation. And I look forward to sharing more stories from Australia, Scotland, Canada, and the US in the weeks and months ahead. If you want more information on the schools and policies referenced here, please go to our website, www.rodelde.org, for more information. A special thanks to Rota Carrington, Susana Tomaz, Glen Denham, and the students of Westlake and Wellington for joining me on this podcast, as well as to Sean Gear and James Lord at the New Zealand Education Ministry for coordinating this visit. This episode was produced and edited by Alejandra Villamares and contains original music from Jesse Herdman. This larger project was done in cooperation with our team here at Rodelle in Delaware and with the OECD team in Paris. None of this would have been possible without our many in-country partners in Australia, New Zealand, and Scotland, and the generous support from the Carnegie Corporation of New York and the Rodale Foundation. I'm Paul Herdman. Thank you. Until next time.